Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm doing a requested video from someone. A while back I mentioned a book in one of my favorite videos. I will link it if you want to see it. But today I'm doing a review of that and also a comparison to another book that's very similar in title and in content. So let's get started. So the book I had mentioned in a previous video and got requested to do a review on is the Tales of Norse Mythology. I mentioned it in a favorites 1 month and I really enjoyed this book. It had great detail about everything. It is a pretty thick book. It took me a little bit to read, but it was very enjoyable. It was a great detailed book. And then for the comparison book, it's also called Norse Mythology, but is this one right here. And I picked this up not too long ago and just read it recently. It covers the same topics, obviously. They're both called Norse Mythology, but they are very different. And you'll see, I enjoyed both of them. I enjoyed this one. This one was really fun to read and very quick to read, unlike the other one. And so I'll kind of explain why I like both indifferently and why I think you should maybe read them together. So I'm going to start with the book that was mentioned in the other video, the Tales of Norse Mythology, this one. It is by Helen Guerber. Don't know if I say these names right, but it's by her. This book almost reads kind of like an academic textbook. It's very detailed, very kind of logical breakdown of the gods, and it really describes them and describes what they can do, kind of like what they were worshipped for, the different names they were used in every region, and it goes very into detail even into smaller gods. There are obviously the main gods like Odin and Thor and Freya and Loki and such. But it touches very deeply, as much as you can, on the lesser gods that people don't know as much when they think of Norse mythology. And I really enjoyed that. You get a whole broad of the whole religion in this book, and it's very detailed. And then one thing I guess I didn't like about the book is that it talks about the stories that they told about these gods, but it doesn't really tell them. It kind of glosses over them, explains them. But then I also liked it because they would go into detail, like when they talk about a story, it will go into detail what this meant, like why this person did this thing and how it related to their life. And it was very nice to kind of see how back then the religion related to their life and why they believed it and what they believed in and everything, and what the gods kind of like stood for them and everything. So it was very nice in that detailed sense. It mentions the poems or the Eddas that they get most of Norse mythology at. They mention them and they quote verses from them, but they don't read them straight out to you, which is, I guess, is nice. Another thing that I really liked about this book, it goes into detail of how this religion helped form the regions that it was in and how it's used in present day, like how Thor was celebrated on a certain day and now it's Thursday, it's Thor's day, and Freya's day is Friday, and how it's incorporated and how like there are certain holidays back then are now used today, just in different incorporations. How when Christianity was introduced into these regions where this was the main belief system, how they changed their holidays incorporate into the Christian religion and made it kind of the same holiday but different, and celebrated it through their beliefs and everything. And so it was the same for the people, but it was easier for them to transition them over to Christianity by kind of like mending them. So it was really nice in detail on that. And then this book is broken up into chapters by gods. So like the first chapter is like the beginning of how they believe the world was formed and started, and then it goes into each god. Like there's a Odin chapter, and then there's a Thor chapter, and a Frigga, and so they break it down into each god, even the smaller gods, and it tells how they're related, of course, and I already said how their powers and why they were worshipped and what they were worshipped for, and it kind of tells of where they're mentioned in stories and kind of the symbolism that God was known for. And then towards the end of the book, it does mention like the stories, the sagas, and different kind of parts of the belief system and the stories that they came from. But this one, it tells it kind of like very straightforward, as you would, I guess, as like in a textbook. It tells the story, not like a lot of detail or anything, and where I guess this kind of lacks in the storytelling aspect of the beliefs is where I really suggest you read kind of these books at the same time, because this almost reads like a fiction book. This one, I read this one after the first one, the Norse Mythology book, and this one was great. It kind of really tied what was said in the other one into the telling of the stories. This one is, the author described it as telling kind of like the stories of the gods, like if you were sitting around a lunch table or a campfire or whatnot, and someone was like, tell us the story of Thor and the wedding, and he would tell like it is written in here. It's very fiction based. It's very like kind of like you can almost see the story playing out. This one was very easy to read. It took me, I don't know, a day, maybe day and a half, not reading constantly, maybe like 4 or 5 hours in total to read this whole book, and it was really enjoyable. It made me laugh. Just the telling of the stories are funny in general, but just the twists they take. My favorite is probably the wedding one. So my favorite was probably Freya's unusual wedding. You see, title of this chapter. It's hilarious, and I think the main characters are Thor and Loki and Freya, sort of, and it's a great story. One of my favorites from this book. One thing you won't get in this book compared to the other, there's not a detail like who the gods are and like exactly what they're capable of. It tells a little bit of them, and then this one is just the main stories. It doesn't tell the minor stories. There's not a lot of minor gods mentioned. There are a few just fleeting through the stories, but they're the main gods of Odin, Freya, Thor, Loki, and such in this one. But if you just want a general sense of the stories they told and the gods of Norse mythology, you can definitely just read this one, and kind of get a general sense of the belief system, religion of Norse mythology. But if you definitely want a more in-detailed kind of academic study of it, I definitely recommend this one. This obviously has a lot more detail and everything, but both of them together I think were really great. Yeah, I think I enjoyed, I read this one first. It's obviously the academic, I'm naming it the academic one. I enjoyed it enough to pick up this one without really knowing how it was gonna read. But you can definitely go with this one first and then read that one and kind of get more in detail with the other. But reading them together was great, because as this one doesn't really do the fiction type telling of the stories, this one does. So they kind of really complement each other. And in reading both of them, there are points where they differ in the same story line type thing, but it kind of works out in the end. The poems and the Eddas, they call them, that they got these from. They're not exactly clear. It all works out in the end. Still all works, and it's the same story, and there's kind of the same meaning behind it. So I hope you're really encouraged to go get these books and read them. They're both great. I recommend both. If you want more of a kind of real academic style reading, this one is definitely your call. And then more of like a fiction, just light reading of the stories, this one will be your bet. But both of them together make a great combo to read both of them. If you read either of these, please comment down below of your thoughts and opinions. I would love to hear it. Also, if you like this video or plan on reading these books in the future, please give this video a thumbs up, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye.